we've been, no, for a few months now, we got into relationship with cats. But we started to connect with him very deeply about a year ago. Precisely the December of 2019 and the December of 2020, there were two different Decembers, but very impactful. When we first came out to support cats, he didn't know us. Neither us, some of us hadn't really known him so well, but we saw how the world moved because of him when he was unfairly disclosed of his HIV status. And the media was bashy, and some people were really on his case. And us, the people in this room, said, you will not discriminate anybody. You will not talk ill of him. He is still great. He's still worthy. HIV has nothing on him. And we came up. But he was not strong and up to the issue. It was not an easy conversation for him to have in 2019. But come 2020, it was a different cat. He had said, I am forward and I am lending my voice. Kindly congratulate him. The December of 2020, we got a rebirth, a recreation of the new cats. He's really offered his leadership. He's offered his voice. And because of him, we have many young people who say, yee, if Katz is living his life and doing his profession and still being as impactful as he is, I will not keep in the dungeons. Stigma will not have its hold on me. Discrimination will not have its hold on me. So from December, our community welcomed him, and in many events we shall have like these, he will have a voice. He will speak because we know when he speaks, his voice is not like ours. His will go a very long way in giving hope, in giving inspiration, and in giving comfort. Thank you so much, Katz. Thank you for being here. If you don't mind, you can even join our short conversation. This conversation is going to be live streamed. And each of us will not spend more than 4 minutes. And this is going to be the cake of the day because it's what we want our leaders to hear. The core message is what's on your heart that you would want to say to our leaders on stopping discrimination. So a short word of appeal, but to also really bring it to life. Solomon will start with our key champion, who is Canon Gideon. He has a way of breaking down this enemy called discrimination, and then all of us will follow his message by giving key calls to action. Thank you so much, Solo.
Let's give Dora another round of applause. Let's just love on high beat, don't we? She's really championed this very much. Dora, we love you too. Thank you very much for being able to lead this cause. I'm just going to tell you a very personal story, and then perhaps I can call Dr. Gideon to come in, Canon Gideon. Listen, so when COVID-19 broke, I was tested that time when it was still, Dora, do you want to join the conversation? Oh, great. So when COVID-19 broke, that time when it was still new and it really was tough. So the Ministry of Health called for a press conference, and they said that among the people who have been infected were journalists. That journalist was me. I was taken, woo, Mulago. So when I got in there, into the isolation center, and I'm working on a special report that will be airing very soon. So the people who were in, they were like, hey, now what do you want to know? So then they all started coming to take selfies with me. Like, you know what I mean? Like we used to queue for food, and everyone would just come, oh, Solo, you're here. I'm like, duh, I'm here. So people would take pictures, so they started sharing those pictures in WhatsApp groups, and then, you know, the whole conversation, Solo has COVID, Solo has COVID, Solo have. So it went in all the different quarters in the different WhatsApp groups. And boy, oh boy, how that really weighed me down. The people I work with eventually got to know that I had COVID. And my goodness, even when I was given a certificate of clearance that I was fine, I was good and discharged and everything, every time I would come close to people, people would walk away strategically, they say, I'm busy, I'm just going to do something. This is a guy who used to sit down and maybe talk about everything, politics and the big stories of the day. You know, it was tough. You know, everyone would come, solo, dala. Like, so in a way, I was pushed in this corner, in this space, where I was discriminated, you know, and I think for me, discrimination came alive that day. Sometimes when we just say things, until when we experience them, is when we can get an actual understanding of what it means. Right now, having COVID is no longer an issue, right? Many people now have got COVID and like, I tested positive, went and did my 14 days, I'm now cool. I got COVID, I took my concoctions, I retested again, I'm fine. You know, so now it's not like like someone can say, hey, I got COVID-19. Right now, like, COVID is a flu. You know, it's just we've gotten flus all our lives and we are now fine. Even when I said that I got COVID here, I'm sure everyone's like, huh? But, you know, maybe it has strategically reduced. So, Tim, this issue of stigma is very serious, and I thank Dora for raising it. Until when you're stigmatized is perhaps when everything comes alive. Canon, you've come out to stand up against discrimination. For so many years, it was a shocker to the world when you came out, but yet you came out with one thing, that I am leading this fight. For so many years, you've championed this fight. If you could just give us an assessment, how are we doing? Are we where we used to be? Are we making progress? And where are we going? I thought that you could ground us there and perhaps lay for us a stronger foundation for us to have a conversation. Do we have another microphone? Perfect. Help me. I will keep this so we can be able to move with that. So, Canon, you're welcome. If you could just briefly share. Ima, can you help? Or you can have this as we fix that.
Where are we? Where have we come from? Our response is in 4 phases. We have the lost decade, 1980 to 1990, lost decade. Then we come to a lukewarm, something being done, 1990 to 2000. That's the decade that almost shaped how Uganda is responding. We have UGANET'S Commission forming in 1992 with a multi-sector response. The Canon Gideons come out in 1992. The bishops, my bishops meet in Mukono on 29th August to start an AIDS prevention program. That was the first time people could see bishops talking about condoms. I remember there was a hot debate when Chairman Kauma was the chairman of UGANET'S Commission, and he would come to meet a consensus conference. And some sections of religious leaders would make a statement and march out. And then the others would remain. And that's when I wrote my first book, Is Morality and Science Exclusively Antagonistic? Because I was seeing what is happening, you know, people making faults. Then we moved on to 2001 and 2010, a better, more shaped response, a lot of practical lessons happening. Remember 1998, we had a conference in Geneva, Bridging the Gap, and then we come to Durban, and people are talking about access to treatment for all. And then we have Washington, D.C., that was really people talking about rights. So we are now on what a phase I call the fourth phase, the active response, where all of these issues are coming out for people to engage. But disclaimer is that even when we are in a phase of active response, we have pockets of communities, of individuals who are still in the lost decade. And those who are in the lukewarm response, we are a mixed group. There are those who are sharp, they have the issues, they have learned from the practices, but there are those who are still struggling in terms of information, in terms of attitudes, in terms of skills, in terms of services, and in terms of supportive legal environment.
Interesting. Can we maybe give the mic there if we have the guys in the tech guys to see if we can have this fixed? I think it doesn't have any batteries, so let's try to fix that. Thank you. Thanks, Canon, for giving us a historical perspective and where we are. Martha, you've really also been part of the champions that have been advocating against discrimination of people living with HIV. Where are we now, from your perspective, and how do we forge a way forward? Let me give you the.
First and foremost, hi to everyone. I would love to acknowledge that we've so far moved, because if you look back the 1980s, at the surge of the HIV, the pandemic coming out, the epidemic sparkling, and how the society even reacted. And then we moved now to where we are. You could see a little bit of progress. But if you still look back last year, with the outbreak of COVID-19, you realize that the same challenges we had 10 years ago have really sparked out. And a case in point is, I'll still state, when you look at the level of how decisions were made, when the lockdown was first imposed, they did forget that there are a lot of people living with HIV who need to access their treatment. There are women who are facing gender-based violence at their homes. There was no plan. And our leaders had to wake up and know, they had to think later. So to me, I think it's about an issue of having a stronger commitment for everyone to know that inequalities that also drive the discrimination, the stigma does exist. And we need to make each other accountable to step up to this response. And as my colleague said, that there are a number of issues that have rose up in the 21st centuries, as you speak about the rights of the marginalized groups, the rights of LGBTIs, the rights of sex workers, all these things will come in point. And these are issues that we as Ugandans, we as African countries have not yet embraced. We've not reached at that point to embrace that there are a kind of people who identify in a given way that we seem to be immoral, which in fact is their natural way of, living. So still it poses the same question, where is the problem? So the problem is simple, the problem is there, but the openness of our leaders and the society as a whole to embrace this as a
face. But people didn't really realize where it came from. It was because I'd noticed people who used to come to me and ask me, is it true? I have an uncle, you can talk to them. Is it true? And these people are living like, even the people around them were looking at them because they're staying with these people, they must be having a problem like their uncle, their auntie, their cousin. So I felt like, okay, now this is like a death sentence to these people. Unless somebody tells them, no, you can wake up, eat, work, enjoy life, do whatever you have to do, and life will be very okay. So it was like more of a heavy load, but I'm happy that like ever since December, I've met the prominent people in government, and they'll sit here at the branch and tell you, how did you do it? Like they start, let me hear your story first. Then they end up telling me, you know what, I'm also positive, and I've been on drugs for this long. There's a kid I met in, I think around Bukoto. They have like, what happened? He stopped me like, I beg you to talk to you. I'm like, okay. He told me his story, and like, but all my friends don't know. But I have this fear of, if they know, they'll be like, even go by my carpentry mates, stop coming, thinking. I was like, it's not a responsibility to tell them, but for you, it comes from like the inner you. Like, you know what? I'm okay, I'll do my meds, I'm fine, nothing will stop me. So I think my biggest worry right now is the spread. Because I think we, our generation, will think this is a certain type of people. Get high on something and not be damaged. People are more scared about pregnancy than HIV. The people are in circles and dying alone out there, waking up and thinking, oh, I may die today, oh, I may die tomorrow. Just to make them feel like it's not a curse, it's not like you're going to disappear tomorrow today. You can still live, you can still be of use to society.
And that's a conversation that needs to be the new normal, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the only way we can fight stigma. And instead of telling the public that, stop stigmatizing people with getting HIV, stop, we need to change the approach. Not to tell people that stop doing this, but rather having conversations like this that, look, I'm MC Katz, I'm still the king of the mic, I'm still doing what I can do, and I'm achieving my best potential. Your thoughts?
Really. I think that's the way. I think that's where my calling comes in. Is to get this senior six, a campus kid who went to campus and just got contracted HIV and thinks all my degree is done now. All my life is totally done. They are there and they're quiet and they're dying like personally. They can't even tell their own parents this. I'm so privileged that I walk around them branches and outings. Somebody sits you like you, follow you to the loose and feel like I want to talk to you. Like, now what's your case? Like you think probably the musician is starting like, hey, good guy, one mama and even with them. So I think we need to get to these young people and tell them, okay, it doesn't mean you have to come out like that. Yeah? Let's leave that to that. But put it in your head that life can go on. You're okay, you can achieve whatever you can achieve, you can be whatever you can be, you can dress like somebody, act like somebody, eat like somebody, play like somebody else in this life.
Certainly, thanks. Pat, I'm going to come back to you. Dora, let me engage you on this. And this is what the team here is thinking. The approach, I know that you talked about the legal bits, but I thought that I'll as well occupy you in this space before we can get into the legal bit. Instead of telling people, stop this, stop that, stop this, what approach, new way can we fight discrimination rather than just telling people?
I think what Pat just shared is very powerful because it's what has worked both. HIV has been the story of solidarity. There are people that live because of Dr. Wantiti. There are many people that live because of Carol Gideon. There are young people who Clara has given them. So if Kat is going to be a figure for the senior kids, social, this is how positive we live. In the HIV response, is what we call positive living. If Papa was given a microphone, he would describe for you what it is. It is personalized, it's a personal experience, it's a personal example. And I think that is why there can never be a response that is not championed by the whole world. So we've gotten great solidarity, great example, great inspiration by the people that have led the way. And that is why people living with HIV will always be the answer. So it is many approaches. So the approach is also, like Martha said, it should be everyone's responsibility. It's not about stop. Because where is discrimination happening? It's at all levels. From parliament where the laws are made to the homes where the maids are being tested out. You see, the laws are made to support community, but the maids that are being run out of the homes are very far away to use that law. They cannot go to court and report the employer, the owner of the house.
I know that.
So it is different levels of discrimination. It is different approaches of discrimination. Even in solving the problem, it is different examples that can be put on the table.
Dora, you just mentioned the issue of maid, and sometimes we go so up and we forget the basic things. There's so many friends of mine who say when they bring a maid at home, they first of all test their HIV status. And once they test their HIV status, if they found positive, you pack your bags and go.
And sometimes in a very undignified way.
In a very undignified way. So sometimes when you ask these people, but why did you do that? Like, someone can, you want to say something?
For instance, I got a mail, I think, early last year. And the first thing they told this mail, they got our file in their family. They got our telling the family, son, we are resorted to using voice at home. It even happened to my daughter. I got mentioned the school, she's in Singapore. And she was telling me, every time you come here, they say you're sick. I'm like, you tell them your dad is a star. Yeah, that's what I told them. So I have no explaining for seeing a kid, I tell you, see you. I just want to say you're fine, tell whoever tells you that your dad is a star.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow. And this is, I think, we need to then take the conversation to that level. Quit telling us before conferences that, fight against discrimination, you don't discriminate that. But when you test your mates and when you find them positive, you tell them pack your bags and go. We are tired of that. I think that I'm coming to you, Dora. Because of the champion against discrimination is so much with people coming out to disclose, then that's where the law comes in. Because then I've had so many times talking about how the HIV criminalization law is actually going against disclosure. Talk to us how what do we do moving forward? I feel like what do we do moving forward, especially with this law?
In terms of the highest level of addressing stigma and discrimination, is having Parliament revisit the law on criminalization. Because the law punishes exposure, punishes disclosure, and punishes and criminalizes transmission. So when you say you will be punished because you do not say, the barriers that come because of the law will not create an environment where a person wants to make their decision and actually respectfully come out. So that is why criminalization has disclosing one's status. If you see somebody discloses and their child is suffering, their child is being harmed, his home is a local area, he will like, why did I even ever come out? And how enabling is the environment? Will there be a matter? Will there be a kind of idiot to support? You see? So the law is not what we needed in terms of the law to criminalize punishing people, taking them to the zero was not the benefit we needed. Because now that it is there, it's a scarecrow. And it will encourage the biases, the prejudices to go. Because there is a timing bomb. It's a timing bomb. It's not a matter of time, and you will see that your girl will be looking like this. You see. So when we give HIV criminalization power, we are fueling discrimination, and we are failing the journey on HIV. But I know Canon Gideon, in his way, may put it better than.
No, I understand. And Dora, thanks for raising this. The issue is to you raise a very interesting issue here, because when you're speaking, something went through my mind. Is it therefore time for us to assess, since this law was passed, can we assess its impact? And what has it been able to gain? What were the members of parliament aiming at on working on this law? And has it achieved what it was aimed at? And if it is just making things worse, isn't it time that we review the law, but perhaps moving a private member's bill or an amendment, to it or something? Can we therefore start a conversation beyond just this roof to see how we can review what it was intended to do and what it has done, and therefore do we need it? You know what I mean? Can we? I don't know what your thoughts are, Dora.
There are efforts already ongoing, because we believe that that's where our barrier is. Like I said, that everybody is tuned into ending AIDS, and the last mile is removing such barriers. So there is effort in different angles to assess. We hope that we can have our results out soon, and Parliament can have its evidence why they need to remove discrimination at that level in the law. But as we wait for that long process to happen, we shall be speaking like we are speaking now. We shall be setting the message to our homes, our workplaces, our schools. Schools have opened today, and because of this whole challenge of COVID-19 and how there were high levels of defilement and deaths in kids, there are very many kids that are going to school when they are HIV positive. They didn't have HIV before COVID-19. Now they have it. How will they be treated when they are tested? Will these kids be comfortable to learn? Will they be welcome? You see? So now that everyday challenges are coming, as we wait to change the law, we shall be agitating in this space and ensuring that we push for an enabling environment and ending AIDS where we can, and policy framework following that.
Interesting. Thanks, Lord, for that submission. Can I also say that the UPDF's recruitment policy, if you test positive, you're not admitted? Pardon? If you're in, you stay. But if you're asking for recruitment, you're not given that opportunity. Think about that. You know what I mean? Like, this is when it comes to life. This is when it just goes away from just conversations to you've applied, you want to be a soldier, you passed all the tests, and you have HIV. So anyway, let's look at the key messages. Where do we go from here? Canon?
I think starting from examining the law, we done in many steps. The best question that can give us a better sustained response is, where did this law come from? Why do we have people who feel that stigmatizing, discriminating, and harassing and killing people is okay? Where is that coming from? I have a friend of mine called Martin Zephyr, and we look at issues differently. But I saw he had a conversation with a transgender person. I didn't get the name, but we see how the conversation was going on. Where is this coming? And that's where we need to start from. Because when I opposed the anti-homosexuality law in 2009, you could have been there. People, I entered the supermarket, I moved out of my car, and the supermarket head came out and said, I saw on TV. Yes. You were opposing the bill. I said, yes. But you are a Christian. And I said, exactly, because I'm a Christian, that's why I was opposing the bill. Because I can't be a Christian, and then I oppose something that is promoting hate, is promoting violence, is promoting intolerance. So we need to grow, even not only just legislative law, because the legislative law is the last bit. There is the cultural law, there is the religious law, and now there is the social media law, public option. It is those ideas that are taken further. And then those ideas from religion, from theology, from ethics, from culture are put into legislative law. And we have to interrogate two things, Solomon. I'm glad you are a director of investigative journalism. So we have to investigate. Why do we, in Uganda, why do we have too much love of power over than the power of love for?
Say that again, Canon.
Why do we have so much love of power over to dominate, to feel you are powerful over someone, or to feel better than someone, or to feel more righteous than someone, than this other type of power, which is the power of love? A love, the power that affirms someone, that appreciates someone, that affirms someone, and empathizes with someone in the situations they are in. So we need to interrogate that. Why is it that someone will feel very religious and very pious when he's discriminating and harassing the other person, instead of feeling remorse, instead of saying, because that is what Jesus found and said, you people, it's not good for you to discriminate women. It's not good for you to exclude children. It's not good to even to exclude people of other religion. You remember when he was talking about the Good Samaritan? He was saying you can even see this person who was not even religious in your context was the one who helped the gentleman who was beaten by thieves. But now phases come that we reach a point and religion and culture are hijacked by people who are oppressive, people who want power. So they feel nice when, you can imagine even what is happening now in our neighbors, that someone who was standing for white privilege is now being worshipped. And people should be saying, oh, we are sorry. No, there are people who are very intent on making sure that some people are off the map completely. They are forgotten. And please don't use that example of, if you don't accept us, HIV will continue. No, those people in that camp says the more AIDS, the better. AIDS is a punishment from God and a curse for your sexual sins, for your sexual deviance. So you cannot say, don't mistreat us, otherwise AIDS will go up. They want AIDS to go up. Because for them, the more people that die affirms their belief. You see? Twabagamba nti ekibi kita kakati muganye mulaba temujjemu kufa. So way forward, I'm glad UGANET'S is here. I think we need to re-engage and redefine what is sin. What is sin? For me, sin has been defined badly. Sin is having this, drinking alcohol, is sleeping with someone who is not your wife or husband. Those are symptoms of the big sin. The big sin is 3: lovelessness, self-centeredness, and self-righteousness. Once we address those 3, discrimination goes, stigma goes, inequality ends, injustice ends. Injustice is there because inequality is there. Inequality is there because lovelessness and self-centeredness are there. People feel, I am privileged, I am entitled to be better than you. I'm entitled to be called righteous and for you to be called a sinner. You remember that guy who had a prayer and he stood up and said, Mukama nkwebaza kubanga nze siri muwonoonyi ng'oli. Ebintu byonna mbikoze bulungi. Ebiragiro byonna mbikutte. Byonna mbikoze bulungi. Then the other guy said, forgive me, Lord. I'm a sinner. Gunsinze. I have not loved as I should. I have not cared as I should. I have not empathized with others as I should. And Jesus asked, mwe abawuliriza Sara zino ebbiri mulowooza Esara Katonda gye yawulira yali eriwa? So the question for Uganda is, how come we are 97% religious community? No, actually 99.9 something religious. But we are the most intolerant, we are the most violent, we are the most discriminative and stigmatizing, except for a few situations where people know your experience and they also say, oh, so we need to examine that. What type of religion, what type of theology are they using to be discriminative? What type of ethics are they using to be intolerant? Because that will show us how those laws come to be made in Parliament. The lawyers call it jurisprudence. If we can look into how come countries come to have the law they have, how come that you can go and have a progressive law and then you have a conservative law? What has brought it and why?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's give him some love. I'll give each of us 1 minute to wrap up and then I'll engage the audience here. Let me start, perhaps since you have the mic, where do we go from here?
I think for starters, I will again speak for the young people. Because it's hard to, first of all, digest belief. More so like school societies. Like, if word goes around school, you know, like you won't share Benson with this person, you won't share soap with this person. I think we need to put it into, like, I think like the educational system or in our advertisement, they will advertise these things, that somebody with HIV/AIDS is normal, he can live, he can be socially with you. Then we would also, my other biggest concern is the prevention part of how this message is reaching out to the young people. I think we need to do more messaging that appeals to these people than people thinking this is biribi abakulu si abantu bato.
Wow, interesting. Repackage the messaging. I think that's what he's talking about, to appeal to an audience of young people. I think that's noted. Thank you very much, Katz. Yes, Martha. Where do we go from here?
Okay, so Solomon, I'm going to share 3 points. One would be around the laws and policies that we have, whether political, whether economic or social. The laws need to protect everyone, and they should not reject anyone. That would be my key message. And then 2 would be around all key stakeholders, everyone, to be accountable to themselves, to each other, to be honest and very, very truthful. And then I will also share more too. In 2015, the whole world, many countries, where of course Uganda, we are a member of the United Nations, we did pledge in the Sustainable Development Goals of all the 17 things that we listed down. And Agenda 10 talks about reduced inequalities. So as journalists, as people in this room, we need to track, starting with the Prime Minister's office, we need to track where are we on that 10th goal. Where are we and what is their commitment? So that would be something that I'm sending out to your team as journalists. And then I'll end by saying that this is a conversation for everyone. As we are having this conversation right now, someone just sent me a tweet, and actually it's coming from my longtime friend, who I've chose to always disagree with, but I respect him and I agree on some things. He writes and he said, actually, you're wrong. HIV is the only infectious STD with special privileges compared to other STDs like gonorrhea or syphilis. Free treatment, free food, freedom to infect others, celebrated status. And he said, Miss HIV to me, we need to talk. And this is the one and only Pastor Semper. But of course, we know a number of people listen to him and follow him. So if this man with a social status in society has not educated himself, a number of people who follow him are going to listen to him. So as we move here today, I'm going to invite all of us to go on our Twitter accounts, and UGANET, you're in this message. Please help me educate Pastor Semper. Because I have tried. But I know if we have collective voices, we will do something to educate him. Maybe also invite him for a cup of coffee. Thank you, and I submit.
Thank you very much. Dora, you have the final say at this, then I can engage my audience.
So before we get the audience coming in, I don't differ from the key messages our colleagues have called for. I totally associate with all calls to action. Critical for me, indeed, is to Parliament, to Uganda AIDS Commission, and to the HIV Committee. We have a new Parliament. I believe we have new hope that in the next 5 years, there will be a revisit at that level. The other call to action is to all of us at our different levels. Every actor that is responsible in doing something to do what they can to end discrimination. As we have seen, it's an issue of attitude. It is what you think, it is what you know. I want to associate with what Canon has said, that those underlying biases are the ones which create us to have a community that is not loving, that is victimizing, that always lives on the top of their bias to undermine people and underlook people. Let us all challenge those biases. For me, it is my call. I'll increasingly challenge the bias and the way people think. Let us push for environments that upgrade people's dignity, that sees people's human rights, that sees people's usefulness, and not seeing them as if they are problems. So for us as UGANET, that will continue to be our campaign to push for dignity for every Ugandan, despite of whatever status, because the Constitution guarantees no discrimination. So no person should be discriminated. And then again, the third call to social media. Social media is our new area of discrimination. Let us wake up as a community and let us be alert to create our own message. Let us push for a social media which is not going to be armed with HIV as a weapon. HIV is not a weapon for abuse. HIV is not a weapon for disrespect. We should all go there and disarm the people that are using it as an issue of a weapon in social media. We saw how many people were HIV positive and were being victimized in the recent elections. The people who stood and were positive and they were being challenged, they are not fit to be leaders because they have HIV. We should always stand out as a community. Indeed, like Martha is saying, let us go and challenge Semper. Let us stand up together and continue challenging these issues that are making HIV stigma thrive. Because where HIV stigma is thriving, we are not ending AIDS in 2030. It will still be here in 2060. So for us to be able to end it, we need to deal with those social inequalities. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Please give my panel a round of applause. I thought that it's time for you to talk back, to just be part of the conversation. Let me start with Dr. Watiti. If can someone help me move the mic, please? Thanks.
Thank you very much, our panelists. One of the things that I really need us to do something is the issue of language. You know, when you use words like combat, combat means rolling up, maybe picking a stone. So, I mean, some people must fly around. Combat. Fight. I remember our friends, the Muslims, declared a jihad. Now, jihad can be bloody, the way I understand it. So this language, but not that I have the language, but we need to examine this language. The language of eliminate,
the language of us telling people to stop stigmatizing us. You know, when, for example, they told us when they were discharging, I didn't know those feet, one of them. I remember the feet they showing us of people who had been discharged, cured of COVID, and they were showing us their legs and the mask's faces and say they don't stigmatize them. How do we stigmatize for whom we don't know? I can't know these shoes is for this or for this one. No, it is a bit difficult. So the language it is. Lastly, I think, maybe because I'm growing older, I'll be turning 70 in the next 2 years. And the older you grow, sometimes you examine some of the methods you've used. Do they need to change? Or I need to change? The people who stigmatize me, did they change? I don't think they did. I think it is me who changed. And when I changed, it looks like they saw a difference. People who thought
That's true.
I was dying, and when I didn't die, in my church, for example, they refused to wed me. When I wanted to remarry, I went to another church and got married and discussed that we sit in front. And whenever I go to church, we sit together. If there is no space, we encourage people to give us a space. So we sit together in front. We have sat there for 15 years. We haven't died. I'm very healthy. And people have changed. So the issue of these people changing, I think we're over-imagining. They are not going to change. First of all, they don't attend these meetings like we are attending here. We have attended here meetings. We have got these ideas. We need to change the way we look at ourselves. I want to finish with this example. For example, I've been helping a friend of mine. She's a young lady in her 20s. She's HIV positive. She's a sex worker, beautiful lady. She came to Kampala from an up-country district to do sex work in Kampala. And she supports her mom, who has high blood pressure and diabetes. Every month she sends money for medicine. But she cannot disclose the kind of work she's doing. So I was saying, but you're doing a very good job helping your mom, paying school fees. How do we work on this? But we are stuck. She says, if I tell them, they will not support me. She even goes to church, even pay the tithe. She pays the tithe of the money she makes in Kampala here doing sex work. So really, do those people need to change or we need to change? I'm not saying she leaves sex work. That's not what I'm saying. But I think we need to examine ourselves and see how can we do. Let me tell you this, friends. I wouldn't blame my sister-in-law who almost pushed me in her sister's grave in 1994 with the knowledge that she has at that time. That's what was normal, because she knew I was a bad guy who had killed her sister, and I deserved to be buried. But now, having lived about 20 years later, we recently met at our daughter's wedding, and we almost hugged, but because of COVID, we didn't hug. Did she change? I think I changed. So I am wondering, first about changing the language, examining the language, but examining us, we the subjects of discrimination. The truth is that we have very little knowledge about HIV. And because of the little knowledge, we may make a lot of noise, quick alakasa, but when you examine our knowledge, it's very. I was in one district recently, and all the people introduced themselves as HIV experts, expert clients. I asked them about 5 questions. All of them they didn't know. Not very high questions. But so these experts, their knowledge is deficit. They have AIDS, acquired knowledge deficiency syndrome, if I may call it. Sorry, but for throwing a spanner in the works. But I think we need to examine the language. We need to examine ourselves.
Wow. Thank you very much. Mama Joanita Kawalia, where are you at? Your hand was up earlier. I noticed it. Supercharger, you'll also have time. Don't worry, my brother. I see you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Our biggest personnel, and I really want to thank the panel. I feel very proud when I see the young people coming on board. But my really concern is almost like Dr. Watiti when he said we have to change. And since, actually, when you look at all these young people, these are people who are really there, but they didn't see what really happened in the past. So they really don't know what is there. I remember one time when we were with the late Phile, and it was like, it is real. This thing is real. And we who were there by that time, we really understand it was real. But then this time when you look at these young people, they don't see anything which makes them to understand it well. So I really feel there is still a gap to make these people understand, just like Dr. Watiti said, what is it? What is HIV? And you remember these are people in their teenagers. I remember when I was a young girl, very pretty and very beautiful, many boys looking around, almost everyone wanted Joanita. But then how do we help them to make the right choice? The word is choice, or what is right? Because they're in a dilemma now. These are young people, and they have to enjoy here and there. Those ones who are very religious, it's okay, just like Professor said. But we, the normal, and whatever is happening, the WhatsApp, or the media is a different media. The dancing is very different. The interactions are really different. How do we help them to understand that so that we can really help them to do better? Otherwise, if we don't do it, just like Dora said, even 60 years, the thing will be there. I remember when I was at school, I thought by the time I leave school, HIV would have gone. But by the time I left school, the HIV was still there, even up to today. So 60 years is not like very long, unless we really help this other generation, which is there right now, to understand and make it better. But I feel we have a lot to do as a team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Supercharger, if we can use 1 minute each, we'll have 2 more submissions, 3 more, and then we'll wrap it up.
Thank you so much. I'm a person who has lived with HIV since 1990 for close to 30 years. And I'm one of those people who have really faced it so rough when it comes to stigma. But I want colleagues to pause and ask ourselves, why do people discriminate and stigmatize us? They have a reason. By the way, abantu temuteka ku YouTube bino byenjogera. The statements that I'm going to make, I don't want them on YouTube. I normally find my statements on YouTube without my permission. Don't YouTube them. Why do people stigmatize and discriminate Supercharger? They have a reason. An ignorant reason. Because they think I'm infectious, isn't it? People discriminate me because they think I'm infectious. People can't give me jobs because they think I'm infectious. If I'm a houseboy, I will not get a job because they think I will infect their children. But the answer is what Canon Gideon just said. People lack the right information. Because all over the world we know that a person on treatment who is undetectable, you can't pass the virus to your partner. You can't. You don't even need a condom with your married wife when you are undetectable. In America, they're even promoting a program called U equals U. It's now being funded by NIH, which is National Institute of Health in the United States of America. U equals U. When you're undetectable, you are untransmittable, 100%. But people don't have that information. So, I don't blame the people who are stigmatizing me because I know they have an ignorant reason. I blame a person who is supposed to empower them with the right information. People lack information. I will give you a very good example, and don't YouTube this example. 7 years ago, my lovely president was one of those people who were so bad at stigmatizing us. My lovely president, 7 years ago, used to throw statements that is it true suffering to govern neighbor tuli kuchi ulya byayogedde. Why was he doing that? He lacked information at that time. It is only when the ED of UGANET'S visited Uganda and sat him down and taught him the information that actually you equals you. And the following day he came on TV and said, all along I didn't know that a person on treatment does not infect others. Can you imagine? His Excellency, the President himself, was lacking that information. Kakati President bwaba information yamala emyaka 20 nga tagirina atolwa abantu. Ekiddirira ekisembayo. Oyogedde ku UPDF. It's not only UPDF as an institution stigmatizing and discriminating people living with HIV, even the sports. Ne bw'onooba okuba omupiira okugusinga Ronaldo ne Messi, tebajja kuwa kifo mu Manchester United ng'oli HIV positive. Ne bw'ebanga goal ozikuba n'okusinga Ronaldo. Because you do, before you join the club, you do a medical test. And one of the things, when you are HIV positive, you are automatically out. But why do you discriminate me from playing football? And yet, Pogba afuna COVID. Nebagera ne bamujjanjaba, after 2 weeks naddamu n'asamba omuki. Omupiira ng'ate he can easily infect other players because anyiza ne mu kisaawe bawanda n'okuwanda mu kisaawe awo na biki. Naye nze omuntu ali HIV positive, people lack the information. Akasembayo Dora. We don't get funding to fight stigma, Dora. Bwe tuba tufuna kitono ng'eggwanga. Abasajja batuwa buwi ssente bafune eddagala bakina ekisina ekizibu bakirabanga ekitaliiwo. They see stigma as if it's not an issue. We need funding to tackle this problem. And the little money that is there to fight stigma actually is not used properly. Era bw'otunuulira abantu abalina ssente ezo ezirwanyisa stigma na biki. Omuntu bw'anoonya wa aw'okudivertinga ssente aw'okuzidivertinga okuzizza mu bintu by'ebirala. It is around that area. Eza ddagala tokwatako eza makerenda bawa makerenda nezino ez'okulwanyisa stigma ate n'abibuuza. So I really feel so bad okuba tugenze emyaka gino gyonna nga we still have this problem. Promote the example ekisembayo ekisingira okunnuma. Abantu nga Watiti, Canon Gideon, Supercharger. Tetulina national programs to fight stigma. Tewali. Tulina bumolomolo era olunagira nga bagira nti kati wadyango oyogereko ku TV naye wandibaddewo program ng'emanyikiddwa nti eyo yo ku UBC. Buli lwakutaano olusembayo wabeerawo Dr. Watiti ne Canon Gideon. Nti balina ne program okuvisitinga buli sub-county mu ggwanga okwogera ku stigma biruwa. Tebiriiwo. Mukama atusaase.
Toyaza nnyo Supercharger. Interesting views there. I can see a number of hands. Jen, where are you? Oh, you have the mic already? Okay, you have the mic. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. My name is Jane Mwirumubi, and this is very interesting. I thank the panelists and the champions. I always like to talk about the recruitment in the army. We've had this conversation, we've had it with Major Ranga. I always like to go, to talk about it. In the army recruitment or the police, previously before even HIV, they used to go through these, those tests. You test for TB, you test for STIs. If you are short, you would not go in. If you walk in with glasses, you are immediately disqualified. Why were they doing this? For the security of the nation. Not necessarily that if you're short, but they had their own. I think they still have their own reasons for that. And you test for HIV now and you're positive, and you go for training. That training, they won't say, don't wake up at 4 and run through this river because you're HIV positive. No, you have to go through that. And remember, you are just coming to terms with being HIV positive, and then you are going through that very rigorous training. Whose benefit is it? I'm always on that side of really, let's let's give it some thought, not necessarily that they are stigmatizing, no.
So do you therefore think that people who have HIV are not able to do that training?
Unless somebody has already been on treatment and they are, like you said, undetectable. But if you're just test positive today and you go for that training, I don't think you'll manage.
Think about the potential of so many people who perhaps have that, who can endure that training and all that. They know their HIV status, but because you've told them that if you have HIV, you cannot be able to manage the training, you have sieved them out. You've not given them an opportunity to prove themselves.
I think it's sometimes for the, because I'm telling you, there will be no time for, the training in the, you have an idea of what they go through. You won't have a time for a meal. You will not take your medicine on time. Maybe you are going through that day, because they are training you for war, remember? And the war, there's no time for a meal. There's no, I'm going to have a bath and then I'll take my medicine with my dinner. No, you are out in the bush. You are hiding in a river. So it's not that, if you're already in the army, well and good, But coming in, I'm always on that side. And then also, it's the system itself, because you can't compromise. Like I said, if you're going for the recruitment and you're putting on glasses, automatically you are disqualified. Those times, these days, I think they can take you. Or if you have TB, you have STIs. So I'm trying to say, what makes HIV a bit different? And then also, it's mainly that, I think it is mainly that physical training, because you will not have time for your drugs on time. You will not have your meals to support your drugs. You have like 2 days, you are out in the river, you are out in the bush.
Jane, Dora wanted to talk back on
please.
that issue.
Yes.
Thank you, Jane, and thank you for sharing your view. Of course, there is a bit of that has an element of truth, but you see, everybody will have a reason they are going to discriminate somebody. A person who tells Cat's worker, don't work there, you may not be safe, will be say, I'm protecting you. Anything can happen. Another person who says, do not go to that home, you can't work there. The mother who said, you can't work in my house if you're positive, even when you're doing everything to protect, will have the same reason. So that is why the human rights standard is a critical standard. Give choice. Give choice, let a person be able to know the challenges and let them decide. But every time you want to decide for somebody, and that is why this is about, the discussion we have today is under the campaign, my body is not a democracy. Let me choose. I don't expect you to determine for me whether I can swim through a river. It is my body. Nobody but me should make that decision. I can be able to work, take my ARVs, keep children safe. Everybody believes that if you're a maid, you are equal to dangerous. No way. We have HIV positive people that are working in homes, very loving, very caring. But everybody will perceive you're HIV, you are dangerous, you're a criminal, you cannot be left with children. That is a dangerous way of looking at things. And that mentality of people making decisions for you is the one which always creates an environment where every prejudice can win for any justification. Human rights says, make your choice. You're a human being, like alcohol. You can say people don't go to bars. Haven't they been stopped not to go to drink? But people are drunk every night, even with restrictions. So let people choose. Restrictions has a place, especially in public health. There is not everything that can be restricted. I think we should end here in the interest of time. We can continue the conversation, and especially that we want to take media questions. We've not taken media questions, and we are short of time. And like I told you earlier, we wanted to have short segments such that we can engage the audience with this conversation. We've had a very rich conversation. Thank you so much for your views. This is going to be re-edited and shared out, and to ensure that people more than us are able to take part into this campaign. of zero discrimination. So thank you for your views. We are going to take group pictures. We are going to have messages in placards. We are going to ensure that we give it the life. And as we've said, let's take it to social media. Thank you very much.
What do you do if your boss closes? Have yourselves a good afternoon. Dora, I hand over the mic to you. Thank you. Let's give my panelists some love. Thank you guys for everything. Dora, over to you.
So I think the team managing the time, we should have finished before midday, 11:30. We are 30 minutes into our time. Sorry.